The Filesystem Hierarchy Standard defines the directory structure and directory contents in Unix and Unix-like operating systems, maintained by the Linux Foundation. The current version is 2.3, announced on January 29, 2004. Directory structure. In the FHS, all files and directories appear under the root directory /, even if they are stored on different physical or virtual devices. Note, however, that some of these directories may or may not be present on a Unix system depending on whether certain subsystems, such as the X Windows system, are installed. The majority of these directories exist in all Unix operating systems and are generally used in much the same way. However, the descriptions here are those used specifically for the FHS, and are not considered authoritative for platforms other than Linux. FHS compliance. Most Linux distributions follow the Filesystem Hierarchy Standard and declare it their own policy to maintain FHS compliance. Gobo Linux is an example of an intentionally non-compliant file system implementation. Some distributions that generally follow the standard deviate from it in some areas. Common deviations include, modern Linux distributions include a /sys directory as a virtual file system, which stores and allows modification of the devices connected to the system, whereas many traditional Unix and Unix-like operating systems use /sys as a symbolic link to the kernel source tree. Modern Linux distributions include a /run directory as a temporary file system which stores volatile runtime data, and which is being considered for the next version of the FHS. According to the FHS version 2.3, this data should be stored and run, but this was a problem in some cases because this directory isn't always available at early boot. As a result, these programs have had to resort to such trickery as using UDAV, MDADM, systemd or mount directories, even though the device directory isn't intended for such data. Among other advantages, this makes the system easier to use normally with a root file system mounted read-only. This is a detailed example from Debian. SHM SHM/A, init RW as /run, lock run as /run, /tmp a tmp. Many modern Unix systems install third-party packages into local while keeping locally developed code in /us. Some Linux distributions no longer differentiate between /lib versus lib and have /lib symlink to lib. Some Linux distributions no longer differentiate between /bin versus bin and /spin versus spin. They symlink /bin to bin and /spin to spin. And spin may get symlink to bin. History. When the FHS was created, other Unix and Unix-like operating systems already had their own standards. Notable examples of these: the Higher 7 description of file system layout, which has existed since the release of version 7 Unix. The Sun OS file system 7, and its successor, the Solaris file system 5. Release history. See also, Unix directory structure, Higher 7. Linux Manpagia, the Linux manual page that describes the hierarchy. References. External links. Official home of the Filesystem Hierarchy Standard at the Linux Foundation. New homepage for specs. Object Root to Euro, a proposal for a new file system hierarchy, based on object-oriented design principles. Fortune cookies through the /proc file system at the Wayback Machine. The dotted standard file name hierarchy. Yet another very different hierarchy, Linux File System Hierarchy version 0.65.